Welcome to the webinar, Taxation and Representation, Tips for Streamlining Tax Management and Global Shopping Experiences with Redstage and TaxJar. The webinar will begin in 1 minute. Welcome to the webinar, Taxation and Representation, Tips for Streamlining Tax Management and Global Shopping Experiences with Redstage and TaxJar. Thanks for joining us today. Meet today's speakers, Ben Shapiro and Jess Hollinger. Ben, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Ben Shapiro. I'm a solutions engineer here at Redstage, really focusing in on identifying customers' requirements and putting effective solutions around that, considering budget, timeline impacts. Previously, I came from the construction and manufacturing heavy industry, so it's been really fun to incorporate all my knowledge from other industries into the e-commerce engineering space.
And hi, I'm Jess Hollinger. I'm an account executive with TaxJar. I've been with the company for about a year now, and I've loved just the wide variety of clients and businesses I get to learn about on a daily basis, and everyone's kind of, unique points of view and requirements from, a sales tax perspective. So looking forward to today. So jumping into things on the TaxJar side of things, what I'm going to be discussing is really 5 main steps for streamlining your sales tax management. So that really involves, determining where you have nexus, understanding when you need to file your sales tax returns, the actual filing process and being compliant, accuracy, so determining the correct sales tax rate to collect and remit, and then lastly, when in doubt, how to automate your compliance.
All right, and really what we're going to cover here at Redstage is once you're collecting that sales tax on all those sales, how do we drive those sales, increase those sales? So things like multinational features, driving that customer loyalty and retaining those customers, making sure that we have all the correct product info and we're managing that properly, reducing the checkout friction, making sure we're getting customers through that process as streamlined as possible, and again, marrying that in-store and online experience for the customer.
Okay, so I'm going to jump into things first here, really determining how to find out where you have nexus. So first off, let's go ahead and talk about how to define nexus. Having nexus in a state simply means having a presence or connection in a state that's significant enough for you to be required to comply with that state's sales tax law. And comply means, registering for a sales tax permit and then collecting and remitting sales tax where appropriate from buyers in that state. Now, there's really 2 types of nexus, physical nexus and economic nexus. I'll kind of go through both of them, right? But physical nexus is anywhere, you have a physical presence in a state. Most states are going to see that as your company's based there, you have employees located there or store inventory. And there's a lot of states that even consider, having contractors or affiliates considered that, physical nexus as well. So jumping into economic nexus, right? Economic nexus is based solely on the volume of sales you do. So regardless of having a physical presence, just doing a certain volume of sales in a state is enough to trigger the obligation to have to register in that state and collect and remit the sales tax. Economic nexus is a relatively newer complexity for businesses to manage. It actually came about as a result of South Dakota v. Wayfair back in 2018, and where the Supreme Court ruled that states can apply sales tax laws to out-of-state retailers and that having a physical presence wasn't required. So to add even more complexity to all of this, all of the states are able to determine their own thresholds of sales volumes for determining nexus, which 43 states and counting currently enforce. Most usually use kind of like an either or combination of individual order count or total revenue. Usually an example I like to give of one of the more common thresholds a state might use is they might say, for example, if you've done 100 individual orders or $100,000 in revenue within my state within a calendar year trailing 12 months, that could be an example of a threshold, right? But again, the volume and look back period does vary by state, so it's really important to monitor your exposure. So all of this to say, right, once you determine where you have nexus, physical or economic, to be compliant, you'll need to register for a sales tax permit in those states. And this graphic is a representation of all of the states that have active economic nexus laws. And you can see that within those states, there are over 14,000 different taxing jurisdictions to comply with. So how do you know your due dates and what is the filing process like? So when you actually register for a state, the state is the one who's going to assign you a specific filing frequency at that time. It could be, monthly, quarterly, annually, etc. And they're also going to have a specific filing due date with that as well. It's going to vary based on the state, but it's usually sometimes between the 15th and the 31st of the month. And again, because each state makes their own sales tax rules, you'll find these due dates and frequencies can vary. States can also, change your filing frequency from time to time. So it's really important to watch out for notification from your Department of Revenue. And this is just a good potential example of a business's filing requirements with nexus in, say 3 states, right? They might have one state that requires them to file monthly with returns due by the 20th of each month, another state that requires them to file quarterly with returns due by the last business day of the month, and then maybe another that requires them to file annually with returns due by the 25th of the month. So you can really see by this of how, as your nexus exposure grows, so does your filing complexity. And it is really important too to file on time, because states do have late fees and they like to tack on interest, all of that to any past due sales tax. Okay, so 14,000 taxing jurisdictions, right? How do you determine the right sales tax rate to charge your customers? So there are many variables that go into determining an accurate sales tax rate. But things like where you have nexus, the ship to address of the buyer, the taxability of the product, these are good places to start, right? So these questions are going to be a good guide when you're starting to determine, how your company should be charging sales tax. Number one, what are you selling, right? Is it tangible personal property? Going to be delivered to the customer, or are we talking something non-tangible, maybe like SaaS, digital software? Important question with that one is, how is it going to be delivered to the customer? And then, of course, last one, which states you're going to sell it in, right? That's going to really help you determine where you might meet those nexus definitions. Here we can get a little deeper into product taxability, and product taxability is really just talking about how certain items might be taxed differently across different states, right? Some might see certain items as fully taxable, where others are exempt or taxed at a reduced rate, etc. Technology is a big one for that. We have found that with that, states are sometimes a little slow to catch up, but we are seeing many offerings like digital goods and SaaS being increasingly taxable in states. And same with tangible personal property, right? While that is mostly going to be fully taxable, there are actually a lot of exceptions to that with certain states and certain items. So things like groceries, clothing, books, those are all taxed differently in different states. And there's actually thousands, of product taxability codes out there to support varying categories like this. Clothing, for example, has hundreds of variations. So, a state might actually look at taxing a shirt differently than boots or hats or something like that. This map just kind of helps to show those tax variations for particular items, right? So the first one, we've got grocery items. You've got different colors based on where they are seen as taxable or exempt, in addition to more granularity from where they're potentially taxed at a reduced rate, or maybe only exempt from state tax, but still subject to a local tax, et cetera. And the second one here would be for SaaS, right? So you not only have color variations on where it's taxable or exempt, but also where it's taxed differently based on if it's for a business use or a personal use. Okay, so what to do when you're in doubt, right? So many things can increase your complexity and liability around sales tax. So things like selling on multiple channels, growing your business and transaction volume or revenue volume, or having those multi-state nexus and filing requirements. These can all be great reasons to consider automation for your sales tax compliance. So enter automation, aka TaxJar, right? So our goal here really is to make e-commerce easier, right? So you can spend more time growing your business instead of feeling overwhelmed with sales tax compliance. So what we do is provide a fully automated solution for end-to-end compliance. Everything from calculating accurate rates at point of sale, so you're charging your customers correctly, to then generating out-of-the-box state sales tax returns based on your sales in each individual state requirements, all the way down to the jurisdictional level, and then automatically filing those returns with the state on your filing frequency, to even being able to track your economic nexus exposure to tell you when it's time to register in a new state. Now, I did want to touch base briefly on our API and how we deliver those real-time calculations at checkout. So TaxJar does take into consideration all of those variables that go into determining an accurate sales tax rate that we discussed earlier, right? So we will consider the product taxability. So if you happen to be selling an item like clothes, software, et cetera, that's going to be taxed differently in different states, that's something that we consume within our logic. And then we'll only charge sales tax in states where you have nexus based on that state's laws. And then most importantly, we maintain all of that tax research, logic, and rate rule boundary data in-house. It's being constantly maintained and updated, right? So we're really able to deliver those rates faster and more consistently than our competitors. And this is just something I wanted to end on here. So Plant Therapy is a client we've been working with who sells, essential oils, hemp products, diffusers. So they really have like an expanding product catalog, and they're selling on a lot of channels. They've got multiple retail locations, e-commerce stores, they sell on marketplaces. So, at the end of the day, they really do have, a lot of complexity around their sales tax requirements. So since being able to implement TaxJar, we have been able to save them over 40 hours a month of employee time. They've also saved 50%, in cost savings compared to the other service provider they were using before TaxJar. And we've also been able to automate the filing for them in 44 states with our auto file service. So that is everything from me right now. I hope I was able to shed a little bit of light onto sales tax. We are going to, have a special offer for attendees that mention this webinar. So please feel free to reach out to our tax team here to discuss how TaxJar might be able to support you. And with that, I will kick it back over to Ben.
All right, thank you very much. All right. So once we know we're collecting this correct sales tax, how do we drive these sales? So Redstage has a lot of experience in both the B2C and B2B space. A great example of this is all the work we've done with the company Tweezerman. They're part of the Zwilling Beauty Group, also Henkel. So if you're familiar with Henkel knives, all part of that family. Recently, we rolled out a new site for them, which actually encompasses multiple countries, including UK, Germany, US, moving into Canada. Overall, we've seen an 87% revenue growth and really growth across all of the metrics, and especially here in the US. Also working on rolling out a B2B site for them, so all their B2B customers have a portal to go in and order, and really streamlining that process for the Tweezerman team, so their customer service representatives can really free themselves up to handle specific issues and really driving additional sales. So a big part of this process for many companies is making sure that we can service our customers wherever they are, whether they're here in the United States, in Canada, Mexico, South America, Europe, Asia, wherever these customers are, we want to be able to serve them. And there's a lot of ways we can accomplish this, especially teaming up with really good technology partners. For example, we're teaming up with Braintree, a PayPal company, Extento, which is great for, we use them all the time for our importing, exporting, whether it's orders, fulfillment information, inventory, stock, just being able to customize the export of data from the e-commerce platform to all the various systems that need that information. And when you're dealing with whether it's multiple business units or multiple countries, there's a lot of complexity there. As well as your PIM service. In this case, we were utilizing Salsify, which is great because all within one system, all of your copywriters and asset managers can access and quickly aggregate all of the data they need for their specific part of the business. And it's very important to make sure that that content is being edited by the right people, having processes in place to make sure that this is being done accurately and efficiently. So part of this is we want to marry this in-store and online store experience. We want to have a unified brand experience for all of our customers. So, first we establish what we're doing on the online store. How does that carry over to, physical retail, as well as your third party? So whether it's eBay, Amazon, Walmart, Best Buy, all these other channels that you're selling through, having that unified shopping experience for the customer. So you're in control of the messaging your customer gets. A big thing that can add to your brand stock is customer reviews, as well as user-generated content, whether it's through social media or other sources. That is a great way to get social validity among your customer base, potential customers, as well as having a good plan in place to manage your product info, whether it's different marketing segments or different countries, making sure that we really have a close grip on all of that experience for the customer. Okay, so how do we build this loyalty and retention? One is really boils down to good content. Good content, whether it's from influencers and from your own customers and from your own people, how to use your products, how to apply your products, what are the benefits of the products. We see here with Tweezerman an example of bringing in these influencers and industry experts on how their tools are utilized. Again, using the user-generated content is huge. Reviews, we all know how all of us go shopping, and one of the first things we look at if it's a new product for us is the reviews of the product. So making sure that we're gathering and displaying these reviews is very important to building up that validation of your brand. And then managing all these reviews and this content across all the multiple streams is very important. So whether it's the copy that your team is writing and utilizing a PIM to aggregate that content to where it needs to go. Here we have some examples where it's the Tweezerman website, whether it's on Walmart or on CVS. Again, that retail experience, making sure that your brand is carrying through that message to all its various channels. Collecting and distributing those reviews. One of our great technology partners is Yotpo. They're one of the few technologies that can actually post those review ratings directly on the Google, which is great because a lot of customers will search for a product right from Google, and if they can see a product pop up on their screen that already has 4 or 5 stars, all the data shows that they're going to get driven right to that product. As we all know, we're all in this pandemic situation where a lot of customers are doing a majority of their shopping online. So making sure we're capturing as many of those conversions as we can, really to keep that revenue going within the business. So an example of optimizing and making sure we're optimizing for our customers as well as the conversion rate and capturing that business. We partnered with some of our technology partners to do what we called the Mobile Optimization Initiative. Through this, we actually used the real data, not speculation, but real data to show us what kind of improvements we need to make to our websites and whether it's a mobile version. Also, we did some testing on desktop as well and tablet to make sure that we are making the most of that traffic we are generating. So we can see simplifying something as simple as simplifying the cart header. So removing all the distractions for the customer. It's a very quick thing to implement, but you can quickly drive up revenue close to 3% on your desktop, almost 1% on your mobile. And this is real data from real tests. This isn't kind of a made up thing and speculation. These are real test results. Again, another great example of the reason we use data is because something we think might work in one place may not work in another. For example, the simplified cart header showed us really good results on the desktop, but not quite what people expected on the mobile. So by using this data, we know how to optimize for not just the customer, but also the viewport. So, and really reducing the friction of this checkout. So we did a lot of testing as far as offering different payment options, whether it's the PayPal Express checkout, your Apple Pays, your Amazon Pays, your Google Pay. Recently, Venmo was also able to roll out to be used on mobile applications. So we've shown just in this one PayPal test, by offering that PayPal checkout, especially on mobile users where screen space is limited, checkout can be a little bit more clunky, and 10% revenue increase per visitor. And we use revenue per visitor. This is a great metric to encapsulate the combination of conversion rate and the average order value. And really, that's what we're trying to go down, optimize for. How do we optimize the most revenue out of each person who visits our site? Another great test we did was just as simple as having a sticky header on the mobile and on the desktop. So really, the point to this is keeping that call to action in front of the customer and reminding them that, hey, they got something in their cart, don't forget to check out with it, and reminding them that they're ready to make this purchase. We saw 25% increase of RPV, revenue per visitor, on this site, and 7%. And again, these little things that we can test are very quick to implement, and with a small impact to timeline and budget can have a big impact on your revenue. So yeah, I'll kick it back over to Don.
All right, thanks, Ben, and thanks, Jess, again for presenting today. So for everybody who attended, you can get 1 month free of conversion testing. This is just for attendees only. So if you'd like to sign up, just visit redstage.com/MOI. That's for the Mobile Optimization Initiative. And we'll be happy to set you guys up with some free tests for the month, so you can start seeing what some of these cool tests we've shown you today can do for you. Other than that, let's jump into the Q&A, and let me just scan to see what kind of questions I've rolled in during the webinar. All right, it looks like we've got one for Jess here. So Jess, does the sales tax depend on where the company is based or where the customer is based?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And like everything with sales tax has a lot of gray area, right? So the majority of states are what we consider destination-based states, right? Where you're going to be charging sales tax based on the buyer's destination or the ship to location. There are some states that are called origin-based states where if you have a physical presence shipping from within that state, to someone else in the same state, you'd actually be charging sales tax based on your home location versus the alternative.
Great, thanks. Here's one for Ben. What are some of the other mobile tests you've seen success with?
That's a good one. Quite a few. Like we said, the sticky cart was a great one. Simplified header, which we demonstrated. Another one we did was actually a very simple one, which was collapsing the coupon code in checkout. We found on many of our customers, not completely eliminating it, just collapsing that field, really actually increased the checkout process. And our thought process there is, if people see right in front of them saying, hey, enter your checkout, your coupon code here, they're going to back out and search Google or somewhere to find one. If they don't find one, they don't feel like they're getting a deal. So just minimizing that, we saw quite an uptick in sales. Additionally, zip code autofills. So when a customer enters their zip code, automatically popping in the town and state as well. Another one was doing on the mobile, for typing in phone numbers and zip codes, you can actually trigger the mobile phone to switch to a number pad instead of the full keyboard. And we did see some good increases there.
Thanks, Ben. Another one for Jess. With a multi-channel business, do you meet nexus when the total from all channels meets the nexus minimum, or is it per channel?
Yeah, so you would have to take into consideration all of the sales across all channels that your business is making towards nexus. It doesn't just get to be, oh, if you meet solely on one channel, it's all of them together.
Awesome. Thanks for clearing that up. Let's see, another one for Ben. How are companies managing the shift to fully digital commerce during COVID-19?
It's a challenge for some. Others who were ahead of the game are really being successful. We have seen a big uptick of customers who are really spending more time on optimizing their e-commerce experience. So they may have had one already, but what they're really doing is trying to capture as many of those conversions as they can, where maybe it was secondary, optimizing their supply chain, as well as spending a lot more time updating that online content.
Great, thanks, Ben. One more for Jess. Does every state have sales tax?
Yeah, there's actually 5 states that do not have a state level sales tax. So Alaska, Delaware, Montana, New Hampshire, Oregon don't.
Gotcha, great. Well, thank you both for joining us today. For anyone who didn't get their questions answered, feel free to submit them now, and I'll just leave this up for a minute. But we'll get to all your questions by email, or feel free to reach out to us on redstage.com/contact us, and we can answer your questions anytime. Thanks again for joining us today, and thank you to our speakers.